Biden campaign this morning returned to an active crime scene. The sub-zero Manhattan courthouse, where Democrats have been pinning Trump down with a political ankle monitor. The criminal brought with him his co-conspirators, old men in black. Punchy Bobby De Niro, wearing a mask, still trying to slow the spread of populism.
De Niro, there's something about being a star where you think your opinion's more important than anybody else's, and you can go give a press conference, and he obviously has been very vocal from 2016 that he hates Trump for whatever reason. Maybe they have some personal thing.
You think Trump ever threw a punch himself or took one? This guy who ran and hid in the White House bunker when there were protesters outside.
Robert De Niro thought he was stepping onto a red carpet. Turns out, it was a trap door. One moment he's posing for flashbulbs, the next he's free-falling into a firestorm. Joe Rogan's holding the flamethrower, Jesse Watters brought the popcorn, and what unfolds is less Oscar-worthy and more box office bomb. From grizzled tough guy growls to mental gymnastics that would exhaust a yoga instructor, De Niro's performance quickly slips from commanding to confused. Suddenly, the Hollywood heavyweight looks more like a lost extra wandering through a script he didn't read. Curious how it all came crashing down. Let's just say this isn't method acting, it's a comedy roast gone rogue. And there are no stunt doubles here?
Man in the world sent an actor who plays a mob boss to intimidate the jury before deliberations. Watch.
The Twin Towers fell just over here, just over there. This part of the city was like a ghost town.
Robert De Niro, the Hollywood Titan, once known for stoic power and gritty realism, has entered a new cinematic era. Delusional grandpa mode. It's not a sequel anyone asked for, but somehow we've all ended up with front row seats. What unfolds isn't just a meltdown, it's a melodrama so over the top, it makes soap operas look like cold, hard documentaries. The legend hasn't left the stage.
Press conferences. Now everyone's heckling him everywhere he goes.
That's so bad.
Like instead of just being this cranky old liberal, now you're this guy that is yelling at other people that are Trump supporters, and they're yelling at you. Like you've opened yourself up to this nonsense. Like, why?
To be gentlemen in this world, the Democrats, you are gangsters. You are gangsters.
Now, every movie you go to, 50% of the population is going to not want to go see that.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe and tap that bell icon. It helps more than Niro thinks yelling helps his point. Now, while Bobby's out here trying to out-anger his own mob movie characters, two very different cultural hurricanes have entered the frame. Joe Rogan and Jesse Watters. They're armed with facts, sarcasm, and the kind of comedic timing that hits harder than a Goodfellas backhand. Let's start with Joe. He doesn't storm in guns blazing. No. He shows up with that half grin, half wince expression, like he just watched a gorilla solve a Rubik's Cube. And maybe do it faster than De Niro pieced together his last argument.
Biden made an actor read a script in Lower Manhattan saying his opponent is worse than 9/11. And then the actor slipped and went off script and admitted he's trying to scare you. In politics, you can't admit you're trying to scare voters. It's not the movies. But watch what happens when there is no script.
What's your response to Republicans who say you're running on January 6th because you can't run on Biden's record?
I'd say that's absolutely...
There's no yelling, no name-calling, just pure, unfiltered confusion. How did Robert De Niro, once the gold standard of cinematic masculinity, morph into a lecturing wind-up doll powered by outrage and maybe oat milk? Joe Rogan doesn't need to raise his voice. He just leans back, shakes his head, and starts connecting the dots like he's watching a plot twist unfold in real time. He's puzzled, and if we're being honest, just a little entertained by the whole bizarre transformation.
For people in Hollywood that are entrenched in that world is to shut the because as soon as they start talking, people like as soon as Robert De Niro starts talking, I'm like, Jesus, get that microphone away from him so I can enjoy Taxi Driver.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I don't want to hear. I love De Niro. I love those mob movies. It's like
I don't want to hear him that he's a moron. I don't want to hear him talking about politics and about Trump supporters and just shut the up, man.
Yeah.
Like you didn't think this through. Like this is, and he's getting yelled at. He's doing an outside press conference. Like, Robert, you're 80 years old. Don't ruin this thing. You've had this life where you were raging bull. You know, you were in The Godfather. Like, stop doing this. Man. Don't do this.
De Niro, Hollywood's eternal tough guy, now sounds less like a mob boss and more like that guy at Whole Foods berating the cashier for not composting the receipt. And for Joe Rogan, it's a head scratcher. Here's a man who once defined stoic menace, now unraveling like a Facebook uncle in the throes of a Thanksgiving political rant. Rogan, with his MMA roots and sensory overload podcast brain, isn't just confused, he's captivated. It's like watching a slow-motion case study in cultural disintegration. There's this surreal mismatch playing out in real time. The weathered legend of cinema, melting down in front of microphones like a substitute teacher who's lost the class. And his breath, somewhere back in 2003. For Rogan, it stopped being about politics a while ago. This is performance art, now, a legacy collapsing into memehood without even realizing it. He even points out the irony. This is the guy who played mob bosses, war vets, loners with haunted eyes. Now he's shouting into the void like a man trying to win an argument on dial-up internet. Rogan smirks, half wondering if De Niro's latest monologue should come with a trigger warning, or just a laugh track. The man who once whispered menace, now bellows confusion. And the transformation is as bizarre as it is bizarrely entertaining.
Most boring interview. He used to sell his movies on Leno and Letterman, and it was like watching a WNBA game. You just were just bored to death. All of a sudden, Trump became president, and he started saying things. I want to punch the president in the face. You know, he's a crooked piece of... And then all of a sudden, De Niro became interesting during his media tours. And that's the only way now he can get publicity for his film, is by cursing and saying whatever he says the movie's Ezra.
For Rogan, it's not anger, it's straight up bewilderment. How does a man with that much legacy, that much gravitas, willingly trade it all in for grievance? And why does every sentence De Niro now utters sound like it was co-written by a group chat full of chronically outraged screenwriters who haven't left their apartments or their rage in years? Rogan leans into the absurdity. It's not that De Niro changed. It's that the curtain finally dropped. And behind it, a guy who genuinely believes moral authority comes from yelling louder than everyone else. The irony doesn't just hang in the air, it echoes. This is the same man who made cinematic history playing characters that could freeze a room with a stare. Cool, controlled, lethal, even when the world was burning around them. But somewhere between his last Oscar campaign and his latest red carpet meltdown, De Niro morphed. The steel-jawed icon became the guy screaming at baristas because someone added oat milk to his existential crisis. He's not surviving chaos anymore, he's manufacturing it. Lighting metaphorical grease fires because his toast leaned a little too libertarian that day. And there's Rogan, perched in his usual Zen-mit snark pose, watching the whole thing like a nature documentary for ego implosions. There's no hostility, just that signature Rogan blend. Part chuckle, part raised eyebrow, part scalpel. He dissects the whole identity crisis with unnerving calm. Here's a multimillionaire, lounging in Upper West Side luxury, preaching working-class gospel like he's still riding the 6 train with a hard hat and a lunchbox. The disconnect. It's not just striking, it's cinematic. Only this time, it's not a Scorsese flick. It's a parody. And De Niro doesn't even realize he's the punchline.
She locked up because she's a complete and total idiot. But that's not...
She's in a pretty contest.
Not only... But that's not just that, dude. Anybody could get locked up like that. You're on stage in front of people with TV cameras pointed at you. You've never experienced that in your life, and you have a panic attack. It doesn't mean you're an idiot. And that's also Robert De Niro.
The same guy who probably hasn't seen a Home Depot receipt in 30 years is now trying to play moral compass for the folks actually installing your HVAC unit. The cognitive dissonance. You can practically hear it crackle. And then the theatrics. The dramatic pauses that practically beg for a standing ovation. The sighs. The squinting. The eyebrow gymnastics. It's less Oscar-winning gravitas and more community theater overkill. Think SNL sketch that doesn't realize it is the joke. Rogan sees right through it. It's not just inauthentic, it's unintentionally hilarious. This isn't Raging Bull, it's Raging Boomer. De Niro's fury doesn't feel raw, it feels rehearsed like a TikTok monologue spiraling off script. And here's the real twist. It doesn't even seem like he believes what he's saying. Rogan, always the straight shooter, finally says what everyone's been tiptoeing around. De Niro's not angry at the world. He's angry the world stopped treating his opinion like gospel. He's not delivering a warning. He's auditioning, desperate for a role in a cultural conversation that's moved on without him. But the plot's off, the delivery's shaky, and the audience. Yeah, they're starting to leave early. Enter Jesse Watters, smooth, smug, and already 2 steps ahead. He doesn't need to yell. His smirk does all the heavy lifting. Where Rogan brings wide-eyed disbelief, Watters comes armed with razor-sharp satire. He slices through De Niro's latest meltdown like he's carving the Thanksgiving turkey. Clean, deliberate, with just enough theatrical flourish to make it really awkward for the kids at the table. And that glint in his eye, that's the look of someone who knows exactly where the mouse is hiding and is enjoying every second of the hunt.
Election coming up in November. How do you decide who you're voting for?
The economy.
Whoever tells it how it is.
I think about who's better looking.
How handsome am I, right? How handsome?
Actor Robert De Niro says you must vote for Joe Biden or else.
Or else.
Or else what?
Or else the country is going to be destroyed.
We're in great shape now, right? We're doing great.
It might be destroyed.
Was the country destroyed the first time?
It was on the verge, yes.
How?
Well, that's a secret.
Never rat on your friends. And always keep your mouth shut.
I might vote for Joe Biden if Robert De Niro said it. I'm not gonna lie, he's one of my favorite actors.
If he pays me, I don't know, $1 million.
Where's the money?
Watters starts where it stings the most, the contradiction. De Niro, once hailed as the gritty voice of truth and justice, now sounds more like a confused script penned by an AI chatbot and a magic 8-ball. One moment, he's preaching unity like it's a campaign slogan. The next he's throwing a tantrum that could make a toddler at Target look emotionally balanced. Watters just raises an eyebrow, calm, cutting, and asks the question hanging in the air. How can someone be this loud, and yet this incoherent? But then he digs deeper. Not with receipts you can fold in your wallet, with the kind that bruise reputations. He rolls out De Niro's real-world contradictions like a cinematic blooper reel of Hollywood hypocrisy. Here's the so-called champion of the everyman, raging from a penthouse. Preaching democracy from a zip code where democracy only shows up at wine tastings and sushi lounges with 5-digit bills. And just when it feels like the final punch has landed, Watters grins that smug TV host sparkle that says, "Nah, we're not done yet." He zeroes in on the selective outrage. The morality that feels more performative than passionate. The virtue signaling that comes perfectly curated and wrapped in designer scarves. Shouted from the safety of gated driveways. Watters paints De Niro not as a rebel or a truth-teller, but as a man who's confused, shouting with substance, spotlight with soul. A guy who lectures the people he claims to defend, all while sipping espresso in the shadows of elite comfort. No pyrotechnics needed. Watters' tone alone flattens egos. Every jab is laced with irony so sharp it could cut marble. He doesn't just roast De Niro. He disassembles him, piece by piece. Like a statue of self-righteousness that started to wobble under its own weight. This isn't a takedown, it's performance art, a masterclass in how far an icon can drift from relevance, while still believing he is the map.
Be asking Robert De Niro about is two things: awesome movies and divorce.
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me what happened to you.
I would love to ask about
with
that.
the divorce. Tell me what happened if you want to talk about it, and tell me what happened to you with these awesome fucking movies. I don't need to know jack shit about his politics.
Well, he doesn't. That's the thing. He just tells you he feels a way. That's all he's got to say.
Yeah, but it's almost unfair to have a guy like that on a public show and talk to him about politics.
Do you know what it reminds me of? When the beauty...
Watters doesn't just call out the hypocrisy, he drags it to center stage. Slaps on a spotlight, and throws in jazz hands like he's hosting Broadway's Roast of the Year. De Niro wants to talk tough. Fine. But Watters gleefully points out the obvious: real tough guys don't crumble when someone pushes back on their hot takes. They don't need applause after every sentence. And they definitely don't whimper when the Yelp review of their latest rant isn't a glowing 5 stars. Then comes the piece de resistance. Watters draws a clean, cutting line between the roles De Niro once played and the man he's become. The guy who embodied gangsters with iron wills, silent killers with 1,000-yard stares, now throws public fits. Like a barista insulted his foam art. It's full circle embarrassment, like Travis Bickle traded in his taxi for a director's chair at a suburban community theater, and he's crying because someone forgot his jazz shoes. As the takedown unfolds, there's an almost poetic rhythm to it. Rogan, ever the curious commentator, breaks it down like he's ringside at the world's strangest MMA fight, where one fighter is just shadowboxing his own ego into submission. Meanwhile, Watters is off to the side, roasting marshmallows over the cultural fire De Niro lit himself and loving every minute of it. Their styles clash in the best way. Rogan brings the logic, slow and surgical. Watters brings the flame, fast and flashy, but the punchlines, they all land in the same place, that warped, ego-driven funhouse De Niro now calls home, where every mirror tells him, "You're right," even when reality is screaming the opposite. Together, they don't just dismantle a single celebrity, Meltdown, they sketch the blueprint of an entire Hollywood ecosystem that confused applause with intellect, and ended up clapping for its own delusion.
Excuse me. You a gangster. You're washed up.
And then they have a protest of Robert De Niro yesterday. He's a fool. He's a broken down fool standing out there. And he got maggot. He got maggot yesterday. He got a big dose of it.
Donald Trump popping off on the Biden campaign's De Niro stunt, which bombed harder than Robert's last 5 movies. The actor was outside the Trump courthouse, letting his undiagnosed Trump derangement syndrome get the best of him. And even the liberal media was embarrassed.
De Niro isn't unique, he's just the loudest echo in a chamber that's gone unchecked for way too long. He's what happens when fame starts believing its own Wikipedia edits, footnotes and all. Rogan just shakes his head, flashing that signature raised eyebrow smirk, the kind that says, "We're living in a simulation." And this guy's glitched out mid-update. He breaks it down with his usual laid-back logic. Stars like De Niro love to talk about the people, the struggle, the fight. But when things actually got hard, when small businesses were shutting down, when working families were scraping by, where was all that fire then? De Niro wasn't marching through the Bronx. He was ranting from a luxury loft with central air, imported hardwood, and a perfectly calibrated outrage filter. That's when Watters, sharp as ever, swoops in like a hawk that just spotted movement in the tall grass, and he goes straight for the soft underbelly. The faux intellectualism, because let's be honest, De Niro isn't offering solutions. He's performing tantrums dressed up as TED Talks, and Watters calls it out. Not just because it's absurd, but because it's dangerous. When people with that much platform start confusing emotion for evidence, and vibes for values, you don't just get noise, you get chaos. Not as a side effect. As the main event, what we're watching isn't a speech, it's an unraveling, and both Rogan and Watters are treating it like a live case study in celebrity hubris. No need for shouting, no need for theatrics, just calm, relentless analysis delivered with scalpel-sharp wit. Rogan, ever the pragmatist, seems half amused and half saddened, like watching an old hero forget their lines. Watters, he looks like he's having the time of his life. The house is on fire, the marshmallows are out, and De Niro handed him the matches.
Fuck up, man.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't think this through. Like, this is, and he's getting yelled at. He's doing an outside press conference. Like, Robert, you're 80 years old. Don't ruin this thing. You've had this life where you were a fucking raging bull. You know, you were in The Godfather. Like, stop doing this.
Man.
Don't do this.
I'm terrified to meet some of those people I looked up to now.
You should be.
I mean, like,
I've met a few of them, and it's actors in particular, because their whole business is pretend. Their whole business is pretend. You know, one of the things about guys like Theo or comedians, you run into comedians, their business is the opposite of pretend. Their business is just being a real person talking shit.
Yeah.
The professional shit talkers.
Yeah.
You know, having fun, being silly, talking shit about things. And actors are not that. They're weird people, man.
And the best part, De Niro never even saw it coming. He's too busy arguing with shadows to notice the lights have already been turned off and the stage crew's gone home. Rogan and Watters weren't out for blood. They were out for balance. In a world where actors mistake movie roles for moral authority, sometimes the only cure is two wildly different voices arriving at the same conclusion. Snap out of it, man. Rogan signs off with a sigh. Part disappointment, part déjà vu, like, another one bites the delusion. Watters wipes the smirk from his face just long enough to give the camera a look, half amusement, half warning. If De Niro can unravel this spectacularly, who's next? And that's what makes it hit. No screaming matches, no quote slinging, no face-to-face showdown. Just two men on opposite ends of the cultural battlefield, casually meeting in the middle to tug the curtain back and reveal the emperor, standing in his boxers, shouting at clouds. And somehow, that's still more dignified than De Niro's last press tour. Even now, after the lights have dimmed and the applause has faded, the echoes remain, not because De Niro said something unforgettable, he didn't, but because his descent, from silver screen legend to soapbox screecher, is a masterclass in what happens when ego is left spinning in the microwave just a little too long. Hot, bloated, and tragically overcooked.
This entire thing was not a great idea.
Step away from celebrities. I don't think it helps. I think it kind of almost, in a weird way, sometimes backfires. Oh, those liberal Hollywood elites, and they're well-intentioned, and Robert De Niro is well-intentioned, but I think staying away from the courthouse would have been the best thing.
Morning Mika was taken aback by the raging tool and tried to get the Biden camp to backtrack.
The best thing for people in Hollywood that are entrenched in that world is to shut the because as soon as they start talking, people, like as soon as Robert De Niro starts talking, I'm like, Jesus, get that fucking microphone away from him so I can enjoy Taxi Driver.
Rogan, never one to beat a dead horse, leans into the bigger picture. This isn't just about De Niro, it's about the cultural fatigue that's slowly creeping in. That collective eye roll every time a celebrity charges into the spotlight, armed with nothing but recycled slogans and emotional backflips. His critique goes deeper than the latest Hollywood meltdown. It's a quiet warning to the entire carousel of fame. The audience is waking up, and they're not clapping anymore. And when the next celebrity steps up, ready to deliver their grand, misguided monologue, Rogan will be right there, smirking, with that familiar, unbothered energy that says, "We've seen this movie before, and the plot still stinks." So while De Niro might still be out there, pacing a stage, delivering his best impression of a malfunctioning TED Talk speaker, the world, it's already moved on. Rogan's podcast will keep unpacking ideas with actual weight, actual thought beyond the drama. And Jesse Watters, he'll keep doing what he does best, turning bloated self-importance into punchlines, sharp enough to leave a mark. And De Niro, he'll be out there, still searching for a script he forgot he was never handed in the first place, delivering lines to an audience that stopped listening 3 monologues ago.